Hello there, live stream tier patrons. Welcome to the live stream of this month. Right here we have uh, a printout of a John William Waterhouse. Um, it's a 8 by 10 inch just printer paper. I ran out of some of the color in the printer, so there's going to be a little bit of a blemish there. But after this stream is done, hopefully the stream goes well this time in terms of the picture quality and the audio, and I intend to have this uploaded to YouTube, so you'll have the footage for this, and it'll also be a extracurricular activity. So let me just adjust the angle over here of the palette there, so you can see. I'm monitoring the live stream with a separate iPad, so if there's any noise in the background, it's just because I'm constantly monitoring the live stream, which is weird. It's not monetized, but there are ads. It's kind of strange. Okay, so now I can check the... Alright, it's working. So I'm checking the live stream using an iPad. Alright, let's get to it. I'm going to be using raw umber to begin with the umber drawing. This is going to be an alla prima study. I don't intend to completely finish this painting, so we'll see how it gets, the video gets split up. So right here I have the medium that I'll be using. This is a lean. I titled it lean. So it's a combination of spike lavender oil, lavender brush cleaner, and then refined linseed oil. So the spike oil is over here, and the cold pressed linseed oil is over here. I used way more of this than I did this. So what you want is for the, hold on a second. Okay, so what you want is to not use too much medium in the beginning of any painting, whether it be a study or whether it be something that you're going to continue. I want to continue pretty much every painting that I start, so I'm not going to treat it as a painting that I just, just do for 2 seconds and then put off to the side. So this is the brush cleaner. I used more of this, so this is the lavender brush cleaner. And then I used the spike oil. So the spike oil has a better relationship, as I heard, with oil paint than odorless mineral spirits. Petroleum distillates are said to have not so good of a reputation with oil paint. So this combined with the linseed oil, what you can do in the future is add more of this into a separate tube. In fact, I've already done that to increase the consistency of the oil. And typically you want to use more oil as you develop your painting. So let's go ahead and get started here. Since I have this printed out, I'm just going to use it to help me out here. Now, since I have this in the same proportion, and I've even taped it onto the same size stretcher, I'm just going to go ahead and take advantage of the fact that I can use sight size now to get the proportions. So I'm just making little marks here, kind of guesstimations for where the large proportions are going to fit. So since this is the monthly live stream, those of you that are watching live, feel free to ask me any questions. I have the camera below my head, so it is a little hard to see the questions, but I'll be looking down at a glance now and then. So these are just trying to place the chin, the mouth, the nose. Obviously that angle is a little strange here. And whenever I want the, let me get this out of the shot. Whenever I want to thin out the paint, I will use that mixture rather than just jumping right into the mineral spirits. I do have Gamsol over here just because I'm running low on spike oil. I will use the Gamsol to clean off the brush every now and then. Alright, so these are just rough approximations for where the features are going to fit. Now it's gonna be a little meticulous in the beginning, and I think that it's a little. I think that's a lot easier actually for those of you that are beginning painters to have these tools available to you. I like to draw with a smaller brush. This is a round. It's a pretty cheap brush. This is a Royal and something or other brush from Michaels, so it's not that expensive. But the colors that I seem to have neglected to talk about, I'll talk about them when I get to the color mixtures. The color, I invest much more on the quality of the oil paints. The canvas that I'm working on is a cotton canvas. I really don't prefer to use cotton canvas for finished work anymore. I prefer to use either a panel or a really fine textured linen, which costs an arm and a leg to me, so I usually just use panel. But this canvas I've been preparing for quite some time. I've been gessoing over it with the Liquitex. It has, I don't know, I think about 7 or 8 layers of Liquitex built up and then sanded, and then I oil toned it with I believe just burnt umber and fast matte, or not fast matte, the Griffin Alkyd titanium white a couple weeks ago. So this cotton canvas has gone through a lot of preparations, and it was on a larger canvas, but I cut it off the canvas and then re-stretched it onto this 8x10. I was initially going to work on another cotton canvas that I just acrylic toned, but it gives me so much trouble to work on acrylic tone these days. I don't want to go back to doing that. So the lines are pretty loose. Nothing is completely set in stone yet at this stage. I have an idea of where the proportions are going to fit. Much better idea than I would have if I was working from the iPad screen. I usually have the iPad screen on the corner over there, but that's not what I'm using. And for those of you for those of you taking the online classes, again, this will be another extra curricular that you can send me for the virtual classroom. And this John William Waterhouse, I'll also, hopefully I mentioned before, I'll have a link to Google Arts and Culture where I've taken the image. I'm also going to have the materials that I prefer to use. I'm going to have affiliate links for the materials. Okay, now I see that there was a little bit of lagging in the footage, so it helps. So let me know if there's any problems in the way that it appears to you with the live stream. I've closed all the tabs. I've been very cautious about that. So I'm using a caliper to place the furthest corner of the side of the head. I'm also going to have Amazon links for you for the caliper, the measuring tools. So that's going to be for the side of the head right there. And this is just I think, one of the optimal ways to study alla prima, especially for beginners and advanced artists. So I'm going to take another measurement here to the bottom of the chin. So it appears I have to move the corner of the chin just a little bit, just a smidgen. And this caliper I believe I bought in Harbor Freight tool store a long time ago, back when I used to ride motorcycles. I would use it to adjust the chain on the motorcycle, and I needed a very specific measurement to adjust a little bolt on the motorcycle chain. But it turns out it's a really useful caliper for painting. Alright, so it looks like we're doing pretty good with the envelope. And again, for the online class, we're going to start project 2, but remember, you can always send me images of project 1, lesson 1, lesson, whichever lesson you would like. Now, hopefully, if the live stream goes well in terms of the quality of the footage, I intend to do more of these. I have also upgraded the setup a little bit so that you can see the palette, the mediums, and I also have the camera set up under my head so I can reach over and see, and hopefully it will mean less back pain working in this way, or filming in this way. Whoops, wrong side of the brush. Alright, and if my hand's real shaky, it's because I just had coffee this morning. I'm looking at the angle. See, this is too far off. Instead of jumping right into the Gamsol, what I'll do is just use a dry brush. Just kind of scrape away. That's one use for the dried up bristle brushes. So I'm putting in a little place marker for this corner here. And also I'm going to have the printout, the cropped 8x10 printout in a Patreon post, so you can view it and download it the same size. I cropped it at a 8x10. But it turns out my printer prints out at 8.5 by 11, I think. So that was actually a good thing because I was able to tape the back of the picture onto the stretcher. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is put a little bit of the raw umber into the surface. Just kind of feed it into the paint. I'm using a bristle brush for this. It's the same one I used to subtract the color earlier. Though it's kind of not good. It's subtracting a little too much. So, and if I want the paint to flow a little bit more, I prefer to use a clean mixture or a clean consistency of medium. So I added a little bit, just a drop as you saw there. Very cautious. Don't want to put too much. I'm gonna quote another artist. I think his name is I remember his name is Eric Johnson. He has a Rembrandt copy on YouTube, or at least a portion of it, from a DVD. And he said, "What can I get the least wrong?" in the beginning, and that just made so much sense to me. So what I can get the least wrong here is the dark for the hair. And I'm using the raw umber, just because I think Waterhouse himself would have probably had some type of umber undertone there. And if you're curious about exactly how I make those little mixtures here, so I have the lean, and then I'm going to have a fat one, and then I'm going to have, well, I use a different one for glazing, but I can go over all of that in behind the scenes if you're interested in that. And if you've asked any questions and I haven't responded, it's just that I'm kind of moving my head back and forth. So are there any questions at this point? To those of you that are watching. I'll leave some of the tone of the canvas here for the partition of the hair, which might be in the wrong spot. Well, that's okay. I think I'll just leave that be at this point. And now start to draw some stuff in for the face. Now I'm starting off with the silhouette of the face. So let's just double check once more. That matches up. And it does. So we'll start from there. Better to start from something that's accurate than something that is not. Now I'm not going to be checking every little thing, but I am going to use the caliper a little more frequently than I would if I were just doing this not side size, if I was doing this comparatively. See, look at that. So it has to move a lot, and that's okay. So what this does is it teaches you accuracy. It gets you acquainted with relating proportions. The goal is to be able to not have to do this and paint more freely. But sometimes it's a good habit to just go for the most accuracy possible. And it may only take a couple minutes to pin something down with dead accuracy, being dead accurate. And then it'll save you potentially hours of kind of throwing paint around and hoping for the best. There. And for those of you that are taking the online classes, I will have specific printouts now available for you to download for each stage or each lesson. So you want to keep things very simple, and that's nothing new. I always say that. But you want to keep it simple for a very specific reason at this point, and the reason being is that you want to be as accurate as you possibly can, as quickly as you possibly can. So something as simple as that, just a mark. I'm sorry for the hand shake, or the shaky hand. A little bit lower. There's also some perspective in this John William Waterhouse. This is actually a crop of a much more intricate painting. I think you'll really like it when you see it. And for those of you that are watching this after it was filmed on YouTube, I'll also have a link for you there. And don't worry, the Rembrandt master study is not going anywhere. I've already filmed the next segment for it. Now I'm looking at the live chat. As I said, I have it on a screen, on my iPad screen to the right. It does look like it's not in completely 100% real time, so I think there's a couple second delay, which I'm guessing that's just how live streams are. It's interesting to see. Now, there's something strange about this. I don't believe Waterhouse would have made mistakes, but the axis is a little strange with the mouth relative to the eyes. Maybe he adjusted this perspective. Now we're going to remain we're gonna remain loyal to Waterhouse, to the original painter of this, so we're gonna paint it how he described it. But I do notice some discrepancy here between these. Now we're gonna do another check. Good old caliper. Pretty close, but I have to move the eye a little more to the right. I think to about there. There. So now we have the eye where we want it. And if you get the proportions, if you get all of these, all of these shapes relatively correct, it has to look like the model. It just, there's no way that it won't if you have all of the proportions. I am kind of doubting the nose, the angle of the nose. It's important to stand back as often as possible. So I see a little bit is off here. And we'll correct more of it with the color when we get to it. And again, this is just a another bristle brush that's pretty used up. Now the nose appears very long, and I think that's a stylization, pre-Raphaelite stylization. So I'll take a measurement here from the root of the nose to the bottom of the nose. So yep, we've got the size, but it appears a little long. But it's Waterhouse. John William Waterhouse is one of my favorite painters of all time. So if you're Waterhouse, you can paint whatever you want. And you want to be very selective of the tone that you have on your canvas. I prefer a warm gray type of undertone just because it can stand in for some flesh tones. When you go and when we add in the flesh color. I'll put in some dark for the mouth. Now that the paint is starting to get a little hard to move, I may put another drop or so of the lean mixture. but not very much. What I would advise against is having that medium in the cup and then just using that medium out of the cup and then reusing that same cup often. That's what I used to do before, but it ensures that you end up having dirty oil, and that's just not helpful for the longevity of your paintings. All right, let's get that scrubby brush. Scrubby scrub. Scrubbity scrub. We're just adding a little bit of a darker tone. You know, it's kind of like designer food in a way. You know, like you feel like you have to say it with some kind of accent. Um, when you have higher quality materials, when you're working with higher quality materials, you almost have to hold the brush like holding your pinky, holding up a pinky to be classy. But I mean, I'm joking. I'm not gonna hold up my pinky the entire time. And how could I forget the angle of the jaw? You could bring out a protractor to check that, but I'm just gonna leave it be. A little bit of a dark tone for the eyes. And we want to set it up for the future layers. So we want to develop this thing as strongly as possible. I'm going to just ignore that. Again, my printer was running out of ink. So as I said, I want to do this painting. I want to work on this painting multiple days. I'm also very closely monitoring the glare. It appears to be glaring here, so there's a chance it might glare there. So if it does end up glaring, I'll see what I can do. So for anyone that's watching this live, I'm gonna keep my eyes focused on the camera right now. So just let me know if the audio and the picture is working for you. I believe I have comments enabled. I should be able to receive comments here. Scrubbity scrub. I'm going to take some out of here. Oh, thanks, Kathy. I'm glad you can see everything. Is the messenger or the live chat not working on here? Well, I mean, as long as everything is visible, that's what's important, and that you're enjoying the live stream. That's the most important part. And again, just a dry brush. The last thing you want to do is get too much medium. Another little tip on glare, the smoother surface, if you paint on a surface that's really smooth, Like I tried to make this canvas smooth, it'll actually glare less. So you want everything to be accurate, but simple. And it will benefit you greatly when you get into the next stages of this process. And this is going to be set up again so you can develop it and not worry about paint cracking or anything like that, at least in this century. Oh, there we go. Hey, Kathy. Oh, great. I'm glad that the chat is working as well. So, yeah, feel free to ask me anything while I'm painting. I'm kind of moving at the pace of a turtle, but I think it's better to be accurate. So this is just like the poster image from Project 1. The same kind of idea. But this time we have the benefit of doing this. So checking everything. Making sure it all lines up. So I'm trying to do as much as I can with the Umber to make my life easier when I get into the color. Something's not settling quite right with me over here. I think it's just the lack of clarity with this corner. And it also could be that the hair is covering this more. I didn't see this before. There we go. I think that's a little closer. I think raw umber is also a really a beautiful color in and of itself, and it's just a very nice and classical tone. But the brand that I'm using kind of annoys me. Winsor Newton. It's just cheaper than Old Holland and Williamsburg, but I will be upgrading that raw umber. What I noticed is that the raw umber is a little waxy. I mean, the color's nice, but it's a little waxy um, with the cheaper oil paint. Now I have to stand back constantly and squint. And squinting, when you look at the image and squint, it's actually better, I think, to do this with a print in terms of squinting than a computer screen. Because with squinting, it helps to simplify what you're seeing. So you want to draw what you see when you're squinting, meaning you put in what you're observing from nature or from your printout, and putting exactly what you're seeing but with less detail. You can get a lot of nice calligraphy with round brushes too. Just on a side note. Now the difference between alla prima and classical, meaning what we do for the most part with the lessons and the projects, I do find that classical is a better way to learn than alla prima. The difference is that with alla prima, we're going to get into color in the first session, whereas a more careful and a more accurate approach will usually layer with monotone. But alla prima shares the same concepts, the same principles. It's exactly the same, except you'll get into color in the first day. What I usually do in my own practice is I'll do this. I'll just draw like this for about I think 4 hours. My working day is usually split 4 hours in the morning, 4 hours in the afternoon, or I mean 4 hours after lunch, and then another 2 hours after dinner. So one sitting, so one of those 4-hour intervals is usually just spent with Netflix on the side, Netflix playing in the background, the photo reference, and then just drawing like this. You can see this angle. So for drawing, it's very important to have horizontals and verticals. So I'm using a horizontal to compare the angle of the nose, and it seems about right. Now I think it's just safer to let it dry upon reaching this stage. But since we're doing painting demonstration and we're doing alla prima, I will be now getting into color. So let me put some of these brushes aside for a second. Let me know if you like this setup as well, because it makes my life a lot easier with filming. I have all of my materials around me, and it's really easy. See, look at that. I have a palette knife like right next to me. So I'm using Flake White, Gamboge Lake Extra. Oh, sorry, Williamsburg Flake White, Old Holland Gamboge Lake Extra, Old Holland Yellow Ochre Deep, Williamsburg Cadmium Red Vermilion. What's this one here? I actually have it over here. Alizarin Crimson Lake Extra. This one right here. The one that's annoying me, this was Old Holland. This is the I can't speak right now. Winsor Newton Raw Umber. This is the Ivory Black Williamsburg Ultramarine Blue I believe Old Holland. Yep, Old Holland. So let's go ahead and get right to the flesh colors now. So I'm going to start off with Flake White. I'm going to use Cadmium Red Vermilion. I'm mixing the flesh color with mostly Flake White. Now I'm going to introduce some of the Yellow Ochre Deep. I am going to have to invent a little bit for that spot. But this color remains pretty true. It's a little dark, so I'll make this lighter than this. It could be that the painting has darkened. You can tell that there are chips and cracking and things like that in the painting. So if there's cracking, then it's possible that the painting has just darkened. So we will do our best to kind of guesstimate what or how Mr. Waterhouse painted it originally. A little more Flake White, and I just prefer Flake White now that I have it in this big tube. So thank you again, my wonderful patrons. I have this Flake White. It's a really heavy tube. I mean, if you drop it, it's a pretty heavy tube. So it's just nicer to have that thickness for oil painting. Now this, as it stands, is a little too pink, and I can even kind of compare it to that. So I'll just go into not the raw umber, a little bit of ivory black. And if you notice, I'm actually using the Zorn palette. I'm using just 4 colors for this flesh tone. So that's about good. And this palette that I'm working on, this is the underside of another palette, just because it was the cleanest wooden rectangle I could get. But I tried sealing it with linseed, but it still needs a few more layers of linseed or some polyurethane, so it's kind of rough. So now yellow ochre. I'm now starting to use the raw umber. I apologize for the sound, if the sound is bothering anyone. So what I want is a nice row of flesh tones approximating the flesh tones that I'm seeing there. I'm not very specific with the number. I'm just mixing up color. Oh, I'm glad that you like to see the palette and the palette knife, Kathy. Yeah, I mean, I usually do this to keep a sense of unity among each of the different shades of flesh tone. You can also modify each little part of the paint. So if I wanted to expedite the drying process, I could put in a fast dryer and just mix it right into the paints. You can also make it a little less thick and add a little droplet to each one of these little shades of flesh tone, but it just helps. Now gonna mix up just a little bit of Flake White, tiny little bit of Gamboge, like extra, maybe a little more than that. And Gamboge Lake Extra is a really nice transparent yellow. So it's nice when you have a really transparent yellow and a really bright or very thick white, such as the Flake White. So that's just to have a really bright light for the flesh tone. Alright, so after an eternity has passed, we now have the colors to use for the flesh tones. They will be modified. I will modify these colors using the primary colors that we have here. Well, let's get started. A little bit over here. I'm going to start with the thing that's the most wrong, and I think it's that sharp angle. So let's go ahead and start here. And I would recommend layering a little thinner. Impasto looks cool. I mean, impasto is definitely a fun thing to do. But the problem with impasto is it can take an eternity to dry unless you're using like an underpainting white or you're using a fast dryer. But I'm not going to go for impasto this time. So starting with a little piece of the puzzle, that was the most wrong. And just like the one artist that I quoted before, what can I get the least wrong? So I'm gonna just start off here for the forehead. See, that's a little too warm, so just tint it with the ivory black. But in general, I don't want too many jumps, too many large jumps. With the hue. And it'll start to get lighter over here. And before long, we'll put a little dark shape. Let's just do it now. A little dark shape to indicate the side of the hair. Now, as you noticed, this is not the darkest dark yet. So I'm still giving myself a little room. Now this is where you can really feel the difference with using flake white versus just titanium white, which is what everyone uses. And there's nothing wrong with titanium white. It's just you can feel it's like you're sculpting with the paint. You can feel the richness of the color as you're applying the brush strokes. Now we're gonna get a different brush. And I'm just using a bunch of synthetics. I use the bristle to add a lot of paint, and I use the synthetics to spread paint. Right now I don't need to add a bunch of paint anymore. And I'm applying the brush strokes in this direction, vertical, because my light is actually up there. It's above. I'm using a photographer style light to try to minimize glare as much as possible. And I always recommend to work in the same lighting that you will be taking the photographs of your work. So there aren't too many surprises when we photograph our artwork. So I'm adjusting the outside shape a little bit more. And since this is almost a profile view, it's 3/4, but closer to profile. That's why I'm starting with the side of the face. Let's just quickly double check this measurement that I've been checking 1,000 times already, just to make sure I didn't push anything out of proportion. I think I did. So that's why it helps to let this dry, but that's okay. It's a small margin of error there. And I'm constantly just looking for things that I can place that seem the most obvious. And flake white, at least for Williamsburg, it dries much faster than titanium white. At least I'm comparing it to titanium white from Winsor Newton. I'm going to stand back a little bit, see if there's anything jumping out. I think it's just too sharp of a line over here. And I'm going to follow the shadow down. Get a smaller brush, paint in the bottom plane of the bulb of the nose. And this site size method is it's a very classical way of working. I believe John Singer Sargent has been said to have used site size. A lot of artists have trained using site size. So if you've never used site size, and again, this is site size, creating a one-to-one replica of what you're doing. We're going to do that with the next project that's coming up. And it's really one of the best ways to learn accuracy, to know what accuracy really feels like when you're um, painting. And it also gives you kind of a peace of mind. I find, at least for me, is I know that the shapes are set in stone, the proportions are set in stone. So I have much less to worry about now. And this brush is a Simply Simmons, fairly cheap brush, cheap synthetic brush. So as I said, I'm now modifying the little pre-mixtures that we made. Standing back a little bit now. If you hear any noises, it's my chair. So whenever I'm questioning something like right now, I'm questioning this very spot. I'm gonna be like a detective, looking for where exactly does this match up with the original. And in fact, I have to move it even further. So that's interesting. I thought that I had it too far to the I thought I had it too far to the right or left, but it appears it has to move to the right. Now this, I would not have seen that as quickly had I not been using site size. Which means this whole thing is now going to have to be adjusted a little bit. And I'm still not 100% on the, well, I have to trust this. I have to trust that this is in the right spot because we used the measurement. So now we're seeing, you're seeing the limitations of my perception. And it's also just because I don't work like this all the time. I usually just work comparatively, where you're sizing something up or you're sizing something down. But this really is a good way. The last time I did something completely sight size like this was a sight size cast that I did, a cast drawing of an ear that I did a long time ago. Now clearly something isn't matching up there, and I'm going to have to do some adjustments. So standing back. So it appears that they agree. Those two corners there. So you're really like a detective. You're looking for information to solve a problem. And I'm just going to paint in the shadow now. So I'm going to use the shadow as an opportunity to correct the mistake. And clearly, what I'll do is get the dry brush. Let's see if I have a dry brush, and move this. This is definitely going to have to move. So I'm drawing out the shadow shape here. And mistakes are natural. Mistakes are going to happen. It's just part of the process. But learning how to work in such a way that you can constantly correct mistakes is important. Oh, thanks, Kathy. I'm glad that the mistakes, um, seeing my mistakes helps you learn. And yeah, these things happen. You know, that I wouldn't have seen that. I definitely wouldn't have seen that. I had this angle off had I not been doing sight size. And the aim for the first layer working this way in the Alla Prima is to get the shapes as perfect as possible. Of course, nothing is perfect, but that's the goal. And then I will stream this again. So I'm going to change the live stream schedule to make this more available for the patrons on the live stream tier. I personally wouldn't want to wait a month for a live stream, but that's just me. And I'm just trying to do this to create more content, useful content. And hopefully this will help to market the classes on YouTube, because I will put the footage on YouTube, but of course the viewers on YouTube, they don't have access to the online classes. unless they sign up. Which again, I'll have links for that. Alrighty, so double checking that. Yeah, it's a really big discrepancy that I had there, and I'm in doubt with this shape here. And another thing about Livestream, it takes a lot less work from my part to produce the video than to use my camera and then upload it to my editor and stuff like that. So that's why I want to do more streams. Alright, so we're getting there with the shape. Slowly but surely. The speed of a tortoise. It's not about how quickly can we get things down, but how accurate is it going to be, especially for portraiture. This is what makes portraiture so difficult, in my opinion. I can't imagine anything more demanding of accuracy than portrait. So the old Holland Alizarin Crimson Lake Extra is a very deep red, so I don't need that much of it, so I may have added too much. You like the setup for the live stream? Oh, I'm glad that you can see the color mixture as well from this perspective. So yeah, I'll keep it. I have a separate room now for my main studio work, and that's the room where you see all the behind the scenes footage, and then I have this smaller room set up for the videos. Now I question the center line of the filtrum on mine, so so this portion here, this little highlight, I question that. I'm going to look for that to see, does this match? First, let me paint it in there. I get a different brush. Let's just use this bright light. So now that I have that little spot in there, I'm going to check it. I'll render it later, but just make sure that it's placed properly. And it is not. So it does have to move a tiny bit to the right, which is strange. So the movement is probably this much. That little thing is what makes portraiture so difficult. That tiniest little adjustment. First it just felt wrong, and then after I checked it, I knew it was wrong. So to about there. So now I'll just go ahead and paint this as I see it and then check it. A little too much red there. The more you do this, the more you build your intuition. So my intuition was telling me that, hey, that's probably not in the right spot as I was placing it. And then I went ahead and corrected that. So I kind of made our model smile a little too much, but that's okay. There's nothing wrong with a little joy in life. So now let's do another little trick. This is a plumb line. So I'll check here. So a vertical line is a plumb line. What does that shape look like? And that actually works. It matches up with the side of the eye, kind of. Side of the eye has to move a little bit. Either that or the mouth. But it's close enough. It's close enough. It doesn't have to be, at least that doesn't have to be as dead accurate. I really hope that did not just mess the live stream. Kathy, can you double check with me if the live stream is still going? I had to decline a phone call because the app said you're live. And it's showing in my iPad screen, so hopefully we're still here. Oh, yes. Thank goodness. Oh, thank goodness. I think that's how I ended up losing connection last time. Someone was calling me. So it's the same person that called me last month. So, and I told them that they messed up my live stream, so hopefully they know not to try and call back. Or they're going to be hearing from me. Whoop. Gonna go into the ultramarine blue to cool down rapidly. It's like a fire truck coming in, adjusting. So now a little bit more for the masses here, and then I think that'll be it for this segment. The atoms on the painting. You mean like it's physics? The atom. I think I only took 2 physics classes. I took basic Newtonian physics. Oh, that's what you mean. Yeah, I see it. I see it on the screen. Now this is weird. It's not zoomed out. Oh wow. That's so weird. I'm trying to zoom out. It's not zoomed. It's just something going on with the app once again. Oh dear. I don't know what this is. On the app I'm not zoomed out, but here, let me take a screenshot. This is hilarious. Take a screenshot. That might be it. I think the app messed up. Kathy, are you still there? I think we might have to end the stream. I feel like the app may have failed. Huh. Okay, I'm waiting. I don't know what to tell you. You can see again? You can see it? That's okay. Let me show you what I'm doing. Hopefully it doesn't mess up the shot. I'm monitoring this thing on the iPad, so that I know that it's working. That was the weirdest thing. Yeah, since I'm trying to upload this footage, I'm glad you can see it now. Since I'm trying to upload this footage for the public, of course, you will have the online students. You will have the ability to do this as a extracurricular. I have to make sure that this footage is usable for the public. And now I'm just going to continue to cover here because if I don't, it's going to look a little strange to have the lips painted in but nothing else around it. Whew, I'm glad we're back. I wish I had a tech person. I have a feeling it has something to do with that phone call. I knew as soon as I was getting that phone call that something was going to go haywire. So with Alla Prima, you don't have to go in and finish everything or paint it 100%, but you can allow yourself some room for experimentation. You can think of it as a color underpainting. I've heard that term used a little bit. So that's what I'm doing. I'm treating it like a color underpainting. And then hopefully I'll get to stream again the continuation of this because I'm not going to rush to try to finish this. I'll have a better printout where that problem is solved. So now I'm just utilizing the pre-mixtures there to just draw. Now we're going to invent a little bit for this. Since clearly it's not supposed to be that color. That was just from my printer. The shadow should get a little darker. And this is the side plane of the face. Has to get much darker now. I'm gonna get a different brush. I like to have a bunch of brushes out. And remember, even though we're doing alla prima, we still want to think about fat over lean. So you don't want too much oil in this layer. And you want the first layer to usually dry the fastest, so that's why I'm painting it a little thinner. Since this is alla prima, I chose not to use any of the fast drying alkyd colors. Now we're gonna have to do a lot of inventing here with the flesh tone. So I'm gonna just cover it and then work on top of it. So now that we've covered it, I believe it would have been lighter, the original. So I'm gonna go ahead and switch brushes and then put in some lighter colors. Let's take this mixture we made before. This would be lighter here. And we would have a little more light for the chin, just based on the position of her chin. And now get a big old brush. I'll mix over here. Gonna have to drop some oil, the lean mixture that we have, just a drop. So a drop goes a long way. So now I'm gonna want to cover all of the darks around the face. And this is what will make it look much closer to that. Switch to another brush. And let's mix over here. Ivory black. Flake white. Raw umber. And of course, a drop. The oil. In this case, the flake white is way too thick, so we're gonna have to use a little more. And that ought to do it. And it's too blue compared to that one. So a little bit of the yellow ochre. Too dark. More flake white. A little closer. It leans towards the green more, so Gamboge. I think that's a little closer now. It might be too saturated, so ivory black, raw umber. Just testing the colors till we get something that's relatively close. Now, of course, with the glare, unfortunately, I see that there's a lot of glare. that may not be, it may not be as easy to see that shape. So a little more oil. So now I can use this to draw back into the face. So we're just gonna go right back into the face. So I step back and I ask myself why. So I make like a kind of animation in my head, bouncing my eye back and forth, seeing like, why does this not look exactly like what I'm looking at, but with less information? And I just go for what's the most obvious. And now I'll start to possibly work all around, adjusting little things. So the aim is to get this to look exactly like this, but with less information. So I can set myself up for a more, so I can set myself up for the next sitting. So you want to think about your future in your painting. Think about what will make your life easier. And the case usually is right here with just trying to get the shapes correct. cleaning the brush off a little bit with the Gamsol. I think that's the first time I used it. So again, I would recommend if you would like to do this for an extracurricular activity, I would recommend holding off from trying to do it alla prima. Instead, use the techniques that that you learned in Project 1 with the very careful drawing and then the underpainting with the monochrome. But if you want to experiment with alla prima, I suggest to try your best with not getting too attached with the way the painting looks in alla prima. That's usually one of the difficulties with alla prima and with painting demonstrations in general is it's very hard to get the painting to look aesthetically appealing in that short amount of time. Whereas the more layered approach that we have for the online lessons, they're much better suited for a finer finish than, say, the alla prima. So standing back. So after standing back, I think that this is still kind of bothering. So let's see. Let's use a little more medium. I'm just going to cover, just umber and cover all of that. Oh no. Person is texting me. This is bad. All right, so I'm going to cover this and then I will leave it be. We're already going 98 minutes. So I'm going to cover the rest of this. As I said, you want to set up for a better painting session the next time. So I'm just going to move very fast now because I'm afraid that they're going to try to call me again and ruin the footage again. So Kathy, yes, I'm thinking of putting more live streams out there for you on Patreon for the live stream tier. But what I aim to do is have these the footage be uploaded to YouTube and the videos, the paintings themselves. I will send you the images here on Patreon, so you can have it for extracurricular. So that this benefits us in many ways. All right, so now that this is covered, Kathy, thank you so much for staying with us here with the live stream. I'll update you on exactly how I'm going to schedule the live stream demonstrations, but I do want to do more of them because it's less work on my part when it comes to editing, and I think that it will be very useful. So Kathy, I think I'm going to end the stream now. Oh, thank you so much, Kathy, for sharing the word. Yeah, hopefully this will do well with YouTube, but we'll see. And again, I'll let you know the schedule for when I'm going to work on this one again. But at least for now, we have the basic shapes established. I am gonna adjust this glare problem. I'm gonna get a. This is what I do with Last Resort on painting. I'll just go right over. So if I have to end the sitting abruptly, so if something happens and I have to end the sitting a little bit sooner than I wanted to, I go in with this cheap little brush. What is this? This is a Select Princeton brush. Just a cheap brush, and I just want it to be really soft, just to get rid of any sharp edges. So yep, I'm gonna leave it at that. The next time I'm going to come into this and start to pull the shapes together a little more, so we'll get this to up closer and closer to the accuracy of that. I'll also do my best to get a better printout for this. So thank you so much, Kathy, for staying along with this month's live stream. And again, I'll update you on the schedule for the future live streams.